85% of the domestic violence victims are women. 85%. There's 15% of them, there is men, but 85% is women or are women, right? So subhanallah, yani, it's reality, but it's a painful reality. Domestic violence, now I'm going to share with you this statistics in the American Muslim community. And this is, again, this is the organization I told you about, according to the Peaceful Families Project, and this is a survey done by Sakina. 31% of the American Muslim reported experiencing abuse within an intimate partner relationship. Now, this is husband and wife. 31% and 53%, as I shared with you earlier, of the American Muslim reported some form of an abuse in a family. So 53% all forms, 31% specifically in the intimate relationship, there is abuse. Subhanallah. Now here we come. Most of the women, right? Or actually I would say most of the couple, the first resource they go to is in imams, right? And this is what the statistics shows. Survey of 63 Muslim leaders showed that 10% of the Muslims experienced physical abuse in their homes. This is an old statistics, if you see. This is the woman I told you about that she passed away in 2004. She started this organization. And this is in 1999, right? They say 10% of the Muslims experience physical abuse. Allah knows how much it is now with all the violence we are seeing in the world, and that become norm. So the more we see violence in the movies, in the cartoons, then we get more immune, we get numb to seeing violence, and then we start seeing it. Look at the language now we are using, not us, but the younger generation. And I had this discussion, in fact, last night with some of the youth, and they said, just look at the cartoons, is the norm. All these fun things is all using the bad language. So you can imagine in 1999, there is 10% of the Muslims experience physical abuse. I am sure it is much more now. A study of 23 Muslim married female immigrants this is specifically from that country, 10% prevalence rate of spousal abuse. Subhanallah. And the roles of imam study, 22 mosques in New York found 96% of the participants perceived imam as a counselor. 96%. Subhanallah, I was preparing this, and that's exactly the phone call I got yesterday. And it was, the woman wanted to talk to me. They already went and talked to the imam. So the first thing we all go, and what is may Allah reward all the imams. Not every one of them is, and myself included, maybe I learned it a little bit in medical school. We're not counselors. We don't have a training, professional training as a counselor, but this is what is available now. So they said 96% of the participants perceived the imam as a counselor, and 74% had sought counseling from imams for safety issue. This is 2006, safety issue. She's worried about her life. Subhanallah, subhanallah. Now, another study, look at this. In a study of 190 Muslims, and it's almost 200, seeking mental health counseling in Northern Virginia, 41% American Muslims experienced domestic violence in the form of verbal, emotional, physical, or sexual. 60% of those experienced verbal or psychological abuse in their lifetime. It's very prevalent. Yani, the numbers is not small. 60%. 60% is almost like 2/3. And this is in general, if you combine them all. And when someone says, I'm being abused, our mind always goes usually to, but that's not only it. And this is the first question I ask when the woman comes to me, and I said, what kind? And I actually specify it, these 5: verbal, physical, emotional, financial, and sexual. Subhanallah. May Allah, subhanallah, make things easy. Now, the last thing is, here we go, the types of abuse. In a survey of 9 domestic violence organizations around the United States serving more than 2,000 Muslim women survivors reported 82% is emotional or verbal, 65% financial. I will not spend for you. Leave and see who's going to give money to your children. This is financial abuse. Or she trusted him and she put all her money or their joint account and then he takes it. Or the other way around. But as I said, 85% of the victims are women. 49% is spiritual abuse. Spiritual abuse. Allah will not be happy with you. You will never go to Jannah. All these things we use, and I always said this way, we tailor the religion according to what we want. So I take a verse or I take a hadith and I tailor it according to what benefits me. I don't look at the whole thing. And I'll come to some of the verses of the Qur'an that we need to look at it in the whole, in totality. We don't look at it at one word. 74% physical abuse. Subhanallah, 74. This is statistics. This is real. 30% is sexual abuse. And a women's shelter resident study of 57 closed case files from an American Muslim women's shelter revealed that, this is in 2007, 37% had multiple types of abuse, 23% physical abuse, and 12% emotional abuse. SubhanAllah. So I shared these numbers. My beautiful South African friends, please forgive me because I don't have statistics from South Africa, but I can imagine if this is what it is in the United States, my gut feelings tell me it is more in South Africa. So this is just now. We are going to base our discussion on what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said to us and through the Qur'an or through Rasul alayhi salatu wasalam. Right? And we'll start with a couple of questions. Does Islam allow it? Does Islam allow abuse? In general, look at it. Spouses, parents and children with each other. Abuse is a form of injustice. It's a form of injustice. You are using your right in not the right way. That's injustice. You're putting something not in the right place. That's injustice. What is the ruling of injustice in Islam? This is a principle. You apply it everywhere in your life. It is actually haram. It is forbidden. It's like eating pork. And Allah said this in a hadith in Qudsi, Ya ibadi, my servant, inni haramtu dhulma ala nafsi وجعلته محرما بينكم فلا تظالموا. My servant, Allah is saying this, my servants, you and me, I have made injustice haram. This is, Allah used this word. It's illegal. It's unlawful. And I made it, Allah is saying this, and I made injustice haram on myself. Allah is al-adl, subhanah. Allah is the just. And injustice, He made it haram on Himself, meaning no one, no creation of Allah, not even animals, will be treated with injustice. Hasha. Allah will not do that. And that's what He's saying. He says, my servant, I made injustice haram, unlawful, and I made it unlawful on myself, and I made it unlawful between you. And then He said, فَلَا تَظَالَمُوا. Do not practice injustice. Abuse is an injustice. That's the first thing we have to remember and we have to learn. When I am abusing my rights in any form or shape, I am committing injustice. I am committing haram. I think we all need to put these facts as basics. People want to practice it, people don't practice it. That's something they have to answer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But there is nothing justified. Nothing justified. And I'm going to come to the ayah in the Qur'an where people use it to justify physical abuse to the woman. But in general, as a principle, and I'm going to come in a couple of the ayat of the Qur'an, principle between husband and wife. Principle between husband and wife. This is the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is not my words. This is not an interpretation. This is clear. And look what Allah says. Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu. O you who attain faith or believer. It's unlawful that you, this is in Surah An-Nisa, the woman. It is unlawful for you to inherit women by compulsion, and do not make difficulties for them in order to take back part of what you gave them unless they commit a clear immorality. فاحشة. Look at this. This is an order. وَعَاشِرُهُنَّ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ. This one. Live with them in kindness. And this is to the men talking to the women. Yani Allah talking to the men how to deal with their wives. وَعَاشِرُهُنَّ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ. Well, I don't love her, Ya Allah. She changed. She's not the same woman I married. And if you dislike them, perhaps, meaning this can happen. You dislike something and Allah makes in it a great khayr. خيرا كثيرا, much good. This is a principle in relationship between husband and wife. Abuse is not allowed. Whether abuse to take back what money you gave them, he will not divorce her till she gives him the money. That's abuse. You don't like her, you cannot. Not liking someone is not a ground for abuse. عاشرهن بالمعروف. That's the first principle in marriage. Live with them with goodness, ma'roof. And that's, by the way, both sides. But this ayah is specifically to the woman. Here you go. This is the next ayah. It's in Surah Al-Baqarah, right? And Allah here is putting it in the context of divorce. And women have the right over their husbands as regard living expenses, right? Similar to those of their husbands over them. It starts by al-mutallaqatu. It starts the ayah. I translate only part of it, but it starts about divorce. When the woman goes through divorce, what should she do? And then Allah in the second part, and He says, they have لهن مثل الذي عليهن بالمعروف. The woman has the same as the man has, right? In fair and goodness. للرجال عليهن درجة. This is an abuse. This may be abused. This what Allah says here. And the men have responsibility over them. للرجال عليهن درجة. So they are above them. That's a loose translation. They're not better than them. When the man will have the upper hand, when the man fulfills the right Allah gave him, and that is by spending on them, by taking care of them from A to Z. From A to Z, when the husband takes care of finance, takes care of emotional, takes care, even when she gets upset and she may say things, he's the man, he absorbed it. And I'm going to say this story because it is there. Sayyidina, I think it's a Sahabi or a righteous man at the time of Sayyidina Umar, right, went to go to Sayyidina Umar to complain about his wife, that his wife is not treating him well. He went to the door of Sayyidina Umar, and then he heard the wife of Sayyidina Umar saying something to Sayyidina Umar, and the man said, he went back and he said, Sayyidina Umar, and then he saw him later. This is like the concept of the story. And he said, I came to complain to you about my wife, and then I heard your wife is talking to you in the same way my wife is talking to me. And Sayyidina Umar responded, and in the meaning of, if we will not be taking care of our wives, who else will? If we cannot absorb their anger, who else will? And this is Sayyidina Umar. So here you go. When I act as Sayyidina Umar, as a man, the man acts as Sayyidina Umar, absorb the anger, the emotion, gentle. Then he has the upper hand. But it's not just a free giving. And when we read the verses in the Qur'an, the man has additional rights, and I put it in red here, and this is actually not my words. This is actually from the commentary of this ayah. The verse indicates the man has additional right that when he fulfills his role as a protector, as a maintainer, and as responsibility of spending, if he does everything and the woman is in the house, respected, being taken care of in everything, including emotional, then yes, لِلرِّجَالِ عَلَيْهِنَّ دَرَجَةٌ. They have, like, let's say, something over them, right? Now we come to the commonest verse that is used by men to justify physical abuse of the woman. الرجال قوامون على النساء بما فضل الله بعضهم على بعض وبما أنفقوا من أموالهم. This is also in Surah An-Nisa. فالصالحات قانتات حافظات للغيب بما حفظ الله واللاتي تخافون نشوزهن فعظوهن واهجروهن في المضاجع واضربوهن. And I'm going to read for you the translation. I put it in red for a reason, because I want people to read it. Men are in charge of women. I mean, the qawama translation is very hard to translate. And it's not in charge. Al-qawwam is someone who is responsible for that person fully, meaning not control, takes care of all their needs. That's al-qawwama. And Allah said, why? Why the man is responsible for the one? بِمَا فَضَّلَ اللَّهُ بَعْضَهُمْ عَلَى بَعْضٍ. What Allah have given them the upper hand in physical and ability to go out and work harder and all the other things. وَبِمَا أَنفَقُوا مِنْ أَمْوَالِهِم. There's two requirements that the man has to fulfill, and then he will have this, as we say, privilege. وَبِمَا أَمْوَالِهِمْ. He spent completely on the woman. The woman by Sharia does not have to spend anything for her house. She does it, that's her generosity. But reality, as an obligation in front of Allah, she's not. But almost every woman does that. So here you go. Then comes to from their wealth. So righteous women are devoutly obedient, guarding their husbands when they are away. But those wives who they fear arrogance, advise them first, forsake them in bed, 2, leave them, and then here strike them. That's the word. That's the word. A lot of people, Muslims and non-Muslims, use it. It says, Allah said, اضربوهن في القرآن. Allah said, strike them, right? And then you go back to the Qur'an again, and look what Allah here said in Surah Al-Ahzab. So the word is a strike, and the Rasul ﷺ explained it. And I'll come to it when I come to the Sunnah. But what did Allah say also in Surah Al-Ahzab? وَالَّذِينَ يُؤْذُونَ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ وَالْمُؤْمِنَاتِ بِغَيْرِ مَا اكْتَسَبُوا فَقَدْ احْتَمَلُوا بُهْتَانًا وَإِثْمًا مُبِينًا. And those who harm believing men and believing women, both sides, for something other than what they have done. So what did she do? She did not cook very well, and then he gets very abusive, right? He did not come on time to the house, and then she becomes very abusive. That's hurt. This is for both, because Allah here, and please read this verse, Allah puts believing men and women. وَالَّذِينَ يُؤْذُونَ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ وَالْمُؤْمِنَاتِ. Those who hurt believing men or believing women for no reason. No reason. And if you look back, Wallahi allahu, those of you who may be involved in this, if you sit down with couple or talk to one of them of domestic abuse, and you really, when they are calm, and you go down, you find it. Things are, I mean, I wouldn't say there isn't major. There are sometimes majors, but there is a lot of it is simple. That's not worth it. This is haram. إِذَاءُ الْمُؤْمِنِ. Hurting a believing man or a woman is haram.